Chapter 1. Shadows of Whispering Pines. Elena Reyes gripped the steering wheel tighter as her SUV wound up the narrow mountain road, the dense canopy of pine trees blotting out the late afternoon sun. Mist clung to the underbrush like ghostly fingers, and the air carried the sharp scent of damp earth and evergreen. In the rearview mirror, the bustling city she'd left behind felt like a distant memory, a chaotic haze of sirens and shadowed alleys that had nearly broken her. Now, the outline of a weathered wooden sign emerged through the fog. Welcome to Whispering Pines, population 1,247. Her new beginning. The detective position here had been a lifeline, a chance to escape the relentless grind of urban homicide cases that had left her with nightmares and a hollow ache in her chest. Whispering Pines promised quiet. Disputes over logging rights, lost hikers, maybe the occasional bar fight at the local tavern. But as she crossed into town limits, a chill prickled her skin despite the heat of blasting. Isolated places like this bred their own secrets, buried deep in the roots of the forest. And outsiders, they were watched. She navigated onto M Street, the main drag lined with quaint log cabins repurposed as shops, a general store, a bait and tackle outfit, and a dimly lit cafe with fogged windows. A few locals paused mid-stride, their eyes lingering on her vehicle with unspoken questions. The sheriff's office was a sturdy timber building squeezed between the cafe and an old mill house library. Elena parked, killed the engine, and stepped out into the crisp air, her boots crunching on fallen pine needles. Inside, the station was unexpectedly polished, gleaming hardwood floors, a few modern computers, and the faint hum of a coffee maker. A wiry woman with sharp features and a tight auburn bun looked up from her desk, her gaze appraising Elena like a specimen under glass. "You must be Detective Reyes," she said, her voice clipped but not unkind. "I'm Clara Thorne. Sheriff Brooks mentioned you'd be arriving today." Elena offered a hand. "Pleased to meet you, Clara. Call me Elena." Her handshake was firm, almost testing, and her lips curved into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let me get you settled. The sheriff is out on a call, something about a poacher up near Black Ridge Trail, but he'll be back shortly." Elena followed her down a short hall adorned with aided plaques celebrating the town's Safest Community Awards and yellowed clippings about annual pine festivals. It was a far cry from the bullet-riddled walls of her old precinct, but something about the pristine order felt forced. Clara pointed to a modest desk in the corner of the open bullpen, overlooked by a window framing the misty woods beyond. "This is yours. Not much, but it suits our needs." Elena set down her duffel bag containing the fragments of her former life, a framed photo of her late parents, a warm notebook, and little else. "It's more than enough. Thanks." Clara nodded, already turning away. "I'll let you unpack. Before you go, could you point me to any active files? I'd like to familiarize myself." Clara hesitated, her fingers twitching at her side. "Active? Oh, well, there's Mr. Harlan's missing hunting rifle. Likely kids fooling around again." She blinked too quickly, her composure cracking for just a second. "That's about it." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Nothing else? No cold cases or ongoing investigations?" Clara's smile tightened. Like I said, we're a peaceful spot. The woods take care of most troubles themselves." She hurried off before Elena could press further. Elena sank into her chair, the exchange leaving a sour taste in her mouth. Why the evasion? She unpacked slowly, her mind wandering to the real reason she'd fled the city. A botched case where her partner took a bribe, framing her in the fallout. The internal affairs probe had cleared her, but the stigma lingered like smoke. Whispering Pines was supposed to be a reset, not another puzzle. The front door creaked open, admitting a burly man in his 50s, his sheriff's badge glinting under the lights. His face, weathered by years outdoors, broke into a broad grin beneath a salt and pepper beard. "Detective Reyes, welcome aboard." He extended a calloused hand, his grip like iron. "Thank you, Sheriff. It's good to be here." "Harlan, please," he insisted, clapping her on the back. "Come on, let's give you the tour." He guided her through the compact station, introducing her to a handful of deputies who offered nods and murmurs of welcome. One, a lanky young man named Deputy Ellis, eyed her with a flicker of curiosity, or was it wariness? Harlan's energy was infectious, the weaving tales of the town's history, ancient logging feuds, whispers of old mining ghosts in the hills. By the end, Elena felt a tentative spark of optimism. In his office, Harlan eased into his chair with a sigh. "So, what do you think? Bit different from the city lights, eh?" "Exactly what I need," Elena replied honestly. "Everyone's been welcoming." "Good to hear." His eyes twinkled, but then sobered. "Listen, Elena, we don't get much action here, but the forest, it has a way of hiding things. Folks go missing on trails sometimes. Just keep your wits about you." The warning hung in the air, unspoken implications threading through it. Elena nodded, her earlier unease resurfacing. As she left the station that evening, the sun dipped behind the pines, casting long shadows that seemed to reach for her. Her rental cabin was a short drive up a gravel path, perched on a ridge overlooking a foggy valley. Parking, she stepped out and paused, the silence broken only by the distant hoot of an owl and the whisper of wind through the trees. For a moment, peace enveloped her. But as she unlocked the door, a faint rustle in the underbrush made her freeze. She scanned the darkness, hand instinctively reaching for her sidearm. Nothing, just the woods settling. "This is home," she murmured as she stepped inside. But as she bolted the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that the pines were watching, guarding secrets she had yet to uncover.
Chapter 2: Whispers in the Mist. Elena settled into Whispering Pines over the next few weeks, carving out a routine that felt both foreign and grounding. Mornings began with coffee at the Rusty Pine Cafe, where she exchanged small talk with Clara, who softened slightly but still kept her at arm's length. Days were spent sorting through dusty case files, mostly minor thefts and trespassing reports, or patrolling the winding forest trails around town. Evenings often ended at the Timberline Tavern, where locals shared stories over cheap beer, their curiosity about the city detective slowly giving way to cautious acceptance. Not everyone warmed to her, though. Deputy Ellis remained a shadow at the station, his sharp green eyes tracking her movements with an intensity that prickled her instincts. When she tried engaging him about local crime patterns, he brushed her off with clipped responses, muttering about outsiders stirring up trouble. His hostility was a puzzle, but Elena chalked it up to small-town territoriality. She'd win him over eventually, or at least outlast his cold shoulder. One chilly October afternoon, as fog rolled thick through the pines, Elena was reorganizing a file cabinet when the station door swung open with a groan. Sheriff Brooks strode in, accompanied by a man whose polished appearance clashed with the station's rugged charm. His tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and slicked-back chestnut hair screamed city money, and his easy smile radiated confidence. He carried himself like someone used to commanding a room. "Elena, come meet a friend of the town," Brooks called, his voice warm but carrying an odd edge. "This is Victor Kane, our district attorney from Redwood County." Elena wiped her hands on her jeans and approached, extending a hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Kane." "Victor, please," he said, his handshake firm, his gray eyes locking onto hers with unsettling intensity. "I've heard impressive things about you, Detective Reyes. Quite a reputation from your city days." Her stomach twisted. His tone was smooth, almost too smooth, and the mention of her past felt deliberate, like a probe. "I'm just here to do my job," she said evenly, forcing a smile. Victor's grin widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. I was just passing through on some county business and thought I'd drop by to meet Whispering Pine's newest asset. Sheriff Brooks speaks highly of you." Brooks chuckled, clapping Victor on the shoulder. "Told you she's a good one. Elena's gonna keep our little town safe." "Indeed," Victor said, his gaze lingering on Elena a moment too long. "Well, duty calls, but I'm sure we'll cross paths again soon." With a nod, he swept out, leaving a faint scent of expensive cologne in his wake. Elena turned to Brooks, eyebrows raised. "The DA makes personal house calls?" Brooks laughed, but it sounded forced. "Victor's a hands-on type. Ambitious, too. Got his sights on bigger things than Redwood County. Likes to keep tabs on the region, you know." She nodded, unconvinced. Victor Kane's visit felt less like a courtesy and more like reconnaissance. What did a high-flying DA want with a backwoods sheriff's office? Her old instincts flared, whispering that something was off. She filed it away, determined to dig into Kane's background when she had a chance. That evening, as she drove to her cabin, the fog thickened, swallowing her headlights. The radio crackled with static, then cut to an emergency broadcast that made her blood run cold. "We interrupt this program for a breaking news alert. A body has been found near Raven's Hollow, just outside Whispering Pines. Authorities are on the scene." Elena's grip tightened on the wheel. Raven's Hollow was a secluded clearing deep in the forest, accessible only through a rutted dirt trail. She floored the accelerator, the SUV lurching through the mist toward the station. The bullpen was a hive of controlled chaos when she arrived. Deputies scrambled, phones rang off the hook, and Brooks stood at the center, barking orders. He spotted her and waved her over, his face grim. "What do we know?" Elena asked, falling into step as they headed to his office. "Not much yet," he said, closing the door behind them. "A hiker found her, a young woman, maybe early 20s, no ID. Coroner's on the way." "How long's she been out there?" "Hard to say. The terrain's rough and the fog's not helping. Could be a day, could be a week." He rubbed his jaw, eyes heavy. "Elena, this ain't normal for us. We get lost campers, not this." She nodded, her mind already racing. "I need to see the scene. I can help secure it, start piecing things together." He hesitated, his expression torn. "You've seen worse in the city, I know, but this is different. The town's gonna be spooked. I don't want you burning out your first month here." "Sheriff, you hired me for a reason. Elena said firmly, meeting his gaze. "I've handled homicides before. Let me do what I'm trained for." He studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "All right, gear up and head out with Ellis, but watch yourself out there. The woods play tricks." As she grabbed her kit, a flicker of movement outside caught her eye. Through the station window, she glimpsed a figure, in the fog, Victor Kane, standing motionless across the street watching the chaos unfold. Their eyes met for a split second before he turned and vanished into the mist. Her pulse quickened. Coincidence maybe, but her gut screamed otherwise. She filed it away, determined to dig into Kane's background when she had a chance. Headed to Raven's Hollow, where answers, and perhaps darker truths awaited in the shadows of the pines.
Chapter 3: Echoes in the Hollow. Elena navigated the rutted trail to Raven's Hollow in tense silence. Deputy Ellis riding shotgun with his arms crossed and jaw set. The fog clung to the pines like a shroud, muffling the crunch of tires on gravel and turning the forest into a labyrinth of shifting shadows. Ellis hadn't said a word since they left the station, but his presence felt like a coiled spring, wary, almost hostile. She wondered if it was her city background or something more personal. Rumors at the tavern hinted at Ellis's troubled history. A brother who'd vanished in these woods years ago, presumed lost to a hiking accident or suicide, depending on who you asked. Elena filed it away. Subplots like that could unravel in unexpected ways. They parked at the trailhead, where yellow tape already fluttered in the breeze, cordoning off the area. Flashlights pierced the gloom as techs and a few deputies milled about, their faces pale masks in the dim light. The air was thick with the metallic tang of damp soil and something sharper, decay. "Stay close," Ellis muttered, finally breaking the silence. "These woods, they swallow people." Elena shot him a sidelong glance. "I've navigated worse. Lead the way." They hiked the narrow path, branches snagging at their jackets like skeletal hands. The hollow opened up ahead, a sunken clearing ringed by towering pines, with a small murky stream winding through moss-covered rocks. In the center, partially hidden by ferns, lay the body. A young woman, her limbs twisted unnaturally, face half buried in the mud. Bruises bloomed like dark flowers around her throat, and her wide, unseeing eyes stared up at the canopy as if pleading for escape. Elena crouched beside her, the familiar veil of detachment descending. She was early 20s at most, with faded tattoos peeking from under a flannel shirt, a Rebels ink, perhaps a band logo or a symbol of defiance. Mud caked her boots, and drag marks scarred the earth leading from the stream's edge. No immediate signs of sexual assault, but the strangulation was clear. Manual, brutal, close range. The killer had looked her in the eyes. "Any witnesses besides the hiker?" Elena asked a nearby tech, her voice steady. The tech shook his head. "Just the one. Said he was foraging for mushrooms when he stumbled on her, shaken up pretty bad, kept muttering about ghosts in the mist. We took his statement, seems clean." Elena nodded, scanning the perimeter. The dense underbrush offered countless hiding spots, but a faint path to the east suggested vehicle access, maybe an old logging road. She'd have forensics check for tire treads or fibers. As she rose, a rustle in the bushes made her hand twitch toward her holster. Ellis tensed beside her, but it was only a deer, bolting away with wide eyes. Sheriff Brooks arrived minutes later, his boots squelching in the mud as he approached. His usual joviality was gone, replaced by a haunted pallor. Jesus, what kind of animal does this? Human one, strangled, then dumped. Real scenes probably elsewhere, somewhere private. I'll need to canvass for similar spots nearby. Brooks nodded absently, his gaze fixed on the body. Town's going to lose its mind. We haven't had a murder since, well, not in my time. He paused, glancing at Ellis, who had wandered to the stream's edge, staring into the water as if it held answers. Keep this quiet as long as we can, no leaks to the press. Elena arched an eyebrow. Speaking of press, I saw Victor Kane outside the station earlier, watching. Brooks stiffened, then waved it off. Victor? Probably just curious. He's got fingers in every pie around here, campaign season and all. Don't read too much into it. But Elena did. Kane's presence twice in one day, coinciding with a body drop, it reeked of more than coincidence. Back in the city, she'd learned to spot the ambitious types who played both sides, prosecutors who bent rules for political gain, or worse, covered for allies. Was Brooks in his pocket? Or was there a subplot here? Maybe an old favor owed tied to the town's logging industry, where Kane's family had deep roots. As the coroner's van arrived, Elena stepped back, letting the team work. But her eyes caught a glint in the mud near the body, a small silver locket, half buried. She donned gloves and pried it open carefully. Inside, a faded photo of a young girl hugging a dog, inscribed with "Forever, S." A clue to the victim's identity, or a red herring? Pocketing it for evidence, she felt eyes on her. Turning, she spotted Ellis watching from afar, his expression unreadable. The fog thickened as night fell, and with it, a whisper of wind through the pines that sounded almost like voices, secrets begging to be unearthed. Back at her cabin that night, Elena pored over preliminary notes by lamplight, the locket's image haunting her. Sleep came fitfully, dreams laced with city shadows merging into forest mists, and in the distance, a figure watched from the trees, faceless, but somehow familiar. Chapter 4. The Locket's Secret. Elena sat at her desk in the Whispering Pines Sheriff's Office, the morning light filtering through the window in pale, watery beams. The crime scene photos were spread before her, each one a grim reminder of the young woman in Raven's Hollow, her bruised neck, her lifeless eyes, the drag marks etched in the mud. The locket, now bagged and tagged as evidence, sat in a tray beside her keyboard, its silver glinting faintly. Forever, S. The inscription gnawed at her, a breadcrumb in a case with precious few leads. The coroner's initial report had landed in her inbox overnight, death by manual strangulation, likely 48 to 72 hours before discovery. No fingerprints in the system, no dental matches yet. The victim was a Jane Doe, but the locket suggested a life, a connection. Someone out there is missing her. Elena's fingers hovered over her laptop, itching to cross-reference missing persons reports from neighboring counties, but the spotty internet in Whispering Pines made every search a slog. A sharp knock at the doorframe jolted her. Sheriff Brooks leaned in, holding a steaming mug of coffee and a small evidence bag. "Morning, Elena. Found this caught in the victim's jacket. Must have missed it in the dark." She took the bag, peering at a thin leather cord with a single wooden bead carved with a crude spiral. "Could be nothing," she said, turning it over in the light. "Or it could have come off the killer during a struggle. Any prints?" "Lab's working on it," Brooks said, sinking into the chair across from her. "Also got a call from the hiker who found her. Says he's remembered something odd. Claims he saw a truck parked near the logging road the night before, about dusk. Black, maybe a Ford, but he didn't get a plate." Elena jotted it down. "That road's our best bet for how the body got there. I'll check it for tire tracks today." "Anything else on the victim?" Brooks' head shook, his beard catching the light. "But Elena..." He hesitated, his voice dropping. "Folks are talking. That Redwood Gazette reporter is sniffing around, and I don't need to tell you how fast panic spreads in a town like this." Elena's jaw tightened. She'd seen the morning's paper. A front-page headline screaming, "Murder in the Pines. Is Whispering Pines no longer safe?" The article was light on facts, but heavy on fear-mongering, with a blurry photo of Raven's Hollow taped off. "They didn't waste time," she muttered. "Any idea who tipped them off?" Brooks shrugged, but his eyes darted away. "Could be anyone. Hikers, Tex, hell, maybe even Clara. She's got a cousin at the Gazette." Elena wasn't buying the nonchalance. Brooks was too quick to deflect, and her mind flashed to Victor Kane standing in the fog outside the station. A DA with a knack for showing up at the worst moments didn't sit right. Was he feeding the press to stir the pot? Maybe to pressure the sheriff's office? Or to cover something else? "I'm heading to the coroner's office later," she said, standing. "Need to see what else they've pulled from the body. Then I'll hit that logging road." Brooks nodded, but his expression was strained. "Just be careful, Elena. This case is hitting close to home. Folks don't like their peace disturbed." She grabbed her coat and the evidence bag with the locket, her mind already mapping the day. As she passed Deputy Ellis in the bullpen, he was hunched over his desk, scribbling furiously in a notebook. He glanced up, his green eyes narrowing, then looked away without a word. Elena's gut twisted. Ellis was hiding something, and she'd bet it wasn't just resentment over her arrival. The coroner's office was a squat brick building on the edge of town, its basement morgue chilled to a bone-numbing degree. Dr. Leela Morrow, a wiry woman with gray-streaked hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, greeted Elena with a curt nod. "Detective, I was expecting you." "What you got?" Elena asked, bracing herself as they approached the autopsy table. Jane Doe lay under a sheet, her pale hand visible, still bearing the chipped black nail polish. Morrow pulled back the sheet, revealing the victim's bruised neck and torso. "Confirmed strangulation, as we thought. No sexual trauma, but I found something curious." She lifted the victim's arm, pointing to a series of faint, crescent-shaped scars along the inner wrist. "These are old, maybe a year or more. Could be self-inflicted, but the pattern's odd, almost ritualistic." Elena frowned, leaning closer. "Ritualistic how?" "Too precise, too symmetrical. Could be a cult thing or some kind of marking. And here," she pointed to the victim's lower back, where faded bruises formed a patchwork. Older injuries, consistent with chronic abuse. She's been through hell long before this. Elena's chest tightened. "Anything on the locket or that cord?" "Card's a dead end so far. No prints, just mud. The locket's being dusted now, but the photo inside? The girl in it looks younger, maybe 12. Could be our victim, could be someone close to her." Elena nodded, her mind racing. Chronic abuse, strange scars, a locket with a cryptic inscription. This wasn't a random killing. There was history here, a story buried in the victim's past. "Let me know the second you get an ID." Morrow's eyes softened. "Find who did this, Reyes. She deserves that much." Back at the station, Elena found a new email waiting. A partial match on the victim's dental records linking to a missing persons report from Ashwood, a logging town 2 hours north. Name, Sarah Kincaid, age 22. Last seen 3 weeks ago, leaving a halfway house after a stint in juvie. No family listed, just a caseworker's contact. Elena stared at Sarah's name, the weight of it settling like a stone. A runaway, a survivor of abuse, now dead, in a town that prided itself on peace. But as she reached for her phone to call Ashwood, a A shadow fell across her desk. She looked up to find Clara, her face pale. "Elena, you need to see this." She thrust a crumpled note into Elena's hand, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena unfolded it, her pulse spiking. Scrawled in jagged handwriting were the words, "She wasn't the first. Stop digging, or you're next." The air in the room seemed to thicken, the pines outside whispering through the open window. Elena's eyes flicked to Clara, then to the note, her city-honed instincts screaming. Someone in Whispering Pines was watching her every move, and they were desperate to keep their secrets buried in the hollow.
Chapter 5. The Threat in the Pines. Elena stared at the crumpled note, its jagged words burning into her mind. "She wasn't the first. Stop digging or you're next." The paper trembled slightly in her hand, not from fear, but from the surge of adrenaline that always came when a case turned personal. She glanced at Clara, whose wide eyes betrayed a mix of panic and curiosity. The station's usual hum felt stifling, the distant chatter of deputies now a low drone against the thud of her pulse. "Who found this?" Elena asked, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. Clara swallowed hard. "I did. It was tucked under the door when I opened up at 6. Thought it was just litter at first, but..." She trailed off, glancing nervously toward the bullpen. Elena folded the note and slipped it into an evidence bag. "Anyone else see it?" "Just you," Clara said quickly. "I didn't want to spook the others. Should we tell Sheriff Brooks?" "Not yet," Elena replied, her mind already dissecting the implications. The note was a warning, but also a slip. Someone was rattled enough to risk exposure. She wasn't the first, hinted at other victims, a pattern hidden in Whispering Pines' idyllic facade. And the threat? It meant she was close to something or someone dangerous. She headed to her desk, the locket and Sarah Kincaid's file pulling her focus. The missing persons report from Ashwood PD had arrived. Sarah, 22, had a rap sheet. Petty theft, possession, nothing violent. She'd bounced through foster homes before landing in juvie at 16, then a halfway house. The caseworker's notes described her as distrustful, prone to running. No mention of the locket or those crescent-shaped scars. Elena made a mental note to call the caseworker later. She needed more on Sarah's last weeks. A shadow loomed over her desk. Deputy Ellis stood there, arms crossed. His usual scowl deepened. "Heard you were out at the coroner's. Find anything useful or just chasing ghosts?" Elena met his gaze, unflinching. Found enough to know this wasn't random. Sarah Kincaid, age 22, Ashwood runaway, strangled, dumped, and someone's nervous enough to leave threats. She tapped the evidence bag, watching his reaction. Ellis's eyes flickered to the note, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "Threats? That's new. You sure you're not stirring up trouble for no reason?" "Trouble's already here," she shot back. "Question is, why's it got you so jumpy?" He bristled, leaning closer. "Watch yourself, Reyes. You don't know this town like you think you do. People talk, but the woods keep secrets better." He turned and stalked off, leaving a chill in his wake. Elena's instincts screamed. Ellis knew something. His brother's disappearance, his hostility. Could he be covering for someone? Or was he just a grieving man lashing out? She added his name to her mental list of threads to pull, along with Victor Kane and whatever Sheriff Brooks wasn't saying. Her phone buzzed, snapping her focus. It was Dr. Morrow. "Reyes, got something on that locket. No prints, but the photo inside? It's not Sarah. The girl's younger, maybe 10, and the dog's got a collar with a tag, hard to read, but it might say Luna. Could be a sister, a friend. Also, those crescent scars, I cross-checked with a database. Similar marks showed up in a cold case from Ashwood 2018. Another runaway, never found." Elena's pulse quickened. "Send me everything on that cold case and keep digging on Sarah's injuries." "Will do," Morrow said. "But Elena, that note Clara mentioned, if it's real, you're poking a bear. Be careful." Hanging up,
Elena grabbed her coat and headed for the logging road near Raven Hollow. The threat only fueled her resolve. If someone wanted her to stop, she was definitely on the right track. The forest road was a muddy scar through the pines, tire tracks barely visible under fresh rain. She crouched, snapping photos of a faint tread pattern, likely from a heavy vehicle like the black truck the hiker mentioned. A glint in the underbrush caught her eye. A cigarette butt, fresh, with a faint smudge of lipstick. Not Sarah's. She hadn't smoked, according to her file. Another player in the game? Back at the station, she found Brooks in his office, staring out the window at the fog-shrouded pines. She slid the evidence bag with the cigarette butt on his desk. Found this near the logging road. Could be unrelated, but it's recent. And this? She placed the bag note beside it. Someone's trying to scare me off. Any ideas who? Brooks' face paled as he read the note, his fingers tightening on the desk. Jesus, Elena, this is, I don't know. Could be a prank, kids messing around. Kids don't know I'm digging into Sarah's case, she said sharply. This is targeted, and it says she wasn't the first. What's that mean, Harlan? What's this town hiding? He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her eyes. Whispering Pines is quiet, but it's got history. People go missing, hikers, runaways. Some turn up, some don't. You know how it is in the woods. Not like this, she pressed. That cold case from Ashwood 2018, same scars as Sarah. You telling me that's coincidence? His jaw worked, but before he could answer, the door burst open. Clara stood there, breathless. Elena, you need to see this. It's on the Gazette's website. Elena grabbed her laptop, pulling up the article. The headline screamed, "Second body found near Whispering Pines. Is a killer stalking our woods?" Her heart sank. A grainy photo showed another crime scene, this one deeper in the forest. A young man, throat bruised, body half covered by leaves. Discovered an hour ago by the ranger. Brooks cursed under his breath. 2 in a week? That's not possible. Elena's mind raced. The note's warning echoed. She wasn't the first. Now a second body, same M.O. This wasn't a lone murder. It was a pattern, and someone in Whispering Pines was desperate to keep it buried. Her eyes flicked to Brooks, then to the window, where the pines loomed like silent sentinels. Victor Kane's face flashed in her mind, his slick smile and perfectly timed appearances, and Ellis with his guarded stares. The web was tightening, but the center held a secret she hadn't yet glimpsed, one that might cost her everything to uncover. Chapter 6. Beneath the Pines. The station was a pressure cooker by noon, phones ringing off the hook and deputies scrambling to manage the fallout from the second body. Elena stood in Sheriff Brooks's office, the Redwood Gazette's article glaring from her laptop screen. The new victim, a male in his late 20s, was found near Shadow Creek, a mile from Raven Hollow. Same manual strangulation, same bruising pattern, same remote dump site. The reporter speculated about a serial killer, and the town was already spiraling into panic. Elena could feel it in the air, thick as the fog outside. Brooks paced behind his desk, his usual warmth replaced by a haggard edge. 2 bodies in a week, Elena. This ain't Whispering Pines. We don't have killers prowling our woods. Then explain the note, she said, tapping the evidence bag with the scrawled threat. And the scars tying Sarah Kincaid to a 2018 cold case. This isn't random, Harlan. Someone's covering tracks, and they're close. Brooks stopped, his eyes darting to the door as if expecting an eavesdropper. You're jumping to conclusions. Could be outsiders, loggers, drifters. We get plenty passing through. Elena leaned forward, voice low. Outsiders don't know I'm digging into Sarah's case. That note was hand-delivered, and Victor Kane's been sniffing around too much for my liking. What's his deal with this town? Brooks bristled, his face reddening. Victor's a good man. His family's got roots here. Kane logging built half this town. He's just invested, that's all. Invested enough to show up the day Sarah's body was found, she pressed. And now another body drops and he's nowhere to be seen? I'm not buying it. Before Brooks could respond, Deputy Ellis burst in, his face flushed. Sheriff, coroner's got an ID on the second victim. You're going to want to hear this. Elena followed them to the bullpen, where Dr. Morrow's report waited on a fax machine, an archaic touch for a modern station. The second victim was Caleb Holt, 27, a drifter with a rap sheet for bar fights and petty theft. Last known address, a transient camp near Ashwood, same as Sarah. No obvious connection between them, but the coincidence of two runaways from the same town turning up dead in Whispering Pines set Elena's nerves on edge. Anything else? She asked Ellis, who was hovering too close, his eyes flicking to the note on her desk. Morrow's voice crackled through the speakerphone Brooks had dialed. Caleb's got similar injuries to Sarah. Old fractures, signs of chronic abuse. No crescent scars, but I found a tattoo on his shoulder. Same spiral design as that wooden bead you sent over. It's not a coincidence, Reyes. These two knew each other or knew the same people. Elena's mind raced. The spiral bead, the locket, the scars, pieces of a puzzle pointing to a shared past. Maybe a cult or a trafficking ring operating out of Ashwood. What about the cigarette butt with the lipstick, she asked. Still processing, Morrow said, but the brand is rare, imported, not sold locally. I'll send you the lab results when they're in. As Brooks ended the call, Elena caught Ellis staring at her, his expression unreadable, but heavy with something. Guilt? Fear? She couldn't tell, but his brother's disappearance loomed larger in her mind. Was Ellis protecting someone, or was he just another piece of the town's fractured history? She grabbed her coat. I'm heading to Shadow Creek to check the scene. Ellis, you're with me. He hesitated, then nodded curtly. Fine, let's move. The drive to Shadow Creek was tense, the fog thicker than ever, curling around the SUV like a living thing. The crime scene was a grim mirror of Raven Hollow. Caleb's body lay sprawled among roots and leaves, his throat a map of bruises, eyes staring blankly at the sky. Elena noted the same drag marks, the same isolation. But something new caught her eye. A scrap of fabric snagged on a thorn bush, dark blue and finely woven, out of place in the muddy chaos. She bagged it, her mind flashing to Victor Kane's tailored navy suit. Expensive material for a drifter's dump site, she muttered, holding it up. Ellis snorted, kicking at a rock. Could be a hiker's. People come through here all the time. Not in $1,000 threads, she shot back. His defensiveness was starting to grate, but she let it slide, for now. Back at the station, Elena spread out her growing collection of clues. The locket, the spiral bead, the cigarette butt, the fabric, and the threatening note. She cross-referenced Caleb's file with Sarah's, finding a thin thread. Both had ties to a defunct Ashwood youth shelter, shut down in 2019 amid allegations of abuse. The shelter's director, one Margaret Voss, had vanished after the scandal, never charged. Could she be the S from the locket's inscription? Or was it someone closer, hiding in plain sight? Her phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. Check the old mill house. Midnight. Come alone. Her heart thudded. A trap, maybe, but also a lead she couldn't ignore. She glanced at Ellis, who was pretending to read a report but watching her from the corner of his eye. Brooks was in his office, door closed, on a hot call. And Kane, where was he? Elena slipped the phone into her pocket, her decision made. She'd go to the mill house, but not unprepared.
As she left the station, the pines whispered in the wind, and for a moment she swore she heard Sarah's voice, or Caleb's, begging her to keep digging, no matter the cost. At the mill house, a crumbling relic on the edge of town, Elena parked a quarter-mile away, her flashlight off, senses sharp. The fog was a wall, muffling sound, but she caught a faint glow inside the structure. Creeping closer, she peered through a broken window and froze. Victor Kane stood in the dim light, speaking in hushed tones to a woman with short, auburn hair. Clara. Elena's breath caught. Clara, the station's gatekeeper, was meeting the DA in secret. Before she could process it, a twig snapped behind her. She spun, hand on her gun, to find Ellis, his face pale and eyes wild. "You shouldn't be here," he hissed, grabbing her arm. "Then why are you?" she whispered back, yanking free. His gaze darted to the mill house, panic etched in his features. "Because I know who's killing them, and if you don't leave now, you'll be next." The world tilted. Ellis wasn't just hiding something, he was part of it. But whose side was he on? And what did Clara and Kane know that was worth killing to protect?
Chapter 7. The Mill House Betrayal. Elena's pulse hammered in her ears as she faced Deputy Ellis in the shadow of the old mill house, the fog swallowing the world beyond. His grip on her arm had loosened, but his eyes, wild, almost desperate, held her in place. The faint glow from the mill house window flickered, casting eerie shadows across his face. Inside, Victor Kane and Clara were still locked in their secretive huddle, their voices too low to decipher. Ellis's words echoed in her mind. "I know who's killing them." Her instincts screamed trap, but the chance to unravel Whispering Pine's secrets was too close to back away now. "Talk," she whispered, her hand resting on her holstered gun. "Who's killing them, Ellis? And why are you out here skulking like a guilty man?" He glanced nervously at the mill house, his voice barely audible. "It's not what you think. I'm not one of them, but I know things about my brother, about this town. You've got no idea what you're stepping into, Reyes." "Then enlighten me, because 2 people are dead and someone's threatening to make me number 3. If you're not involved, prove it." His jaw clenched, his gaze darting to the mill house again. "My brother, Nate, he didn't just disappear. He was digging into something years ago, something tied to the old shelter in Ashwood. He found records, kids like Sarah and Caleb, runaways who came through here. Some never left. I think someone made sure of it." Elena's mind raced, connecting dots. The Ashwood shelter, Sarah's scars, Caleb's spiral tattoo, the note's warning. "You're saying Nate was killed to cover it up. By who? Kane? Clara?" Ellis shook his head, his voice cracking. "I don't know the whole picture. Nate left me a journal before he vanished, hidden in our old hunting cabin. I didn't read it until last week, after Sarah turned up. It mentions a name. Voss. Margaret Voss? The shelter's director? She was running something under the table, maybe trafficking, maybe worse. Nate thought she had help, someone powerful. Margaret Voss. The name from Sarah's file? The vanished director?" Elena's grip tightened on her gun. "And Kane? What's his role?" Ellis hesitated, his eyes haunted. "His family's tied to the shelter. Kane Logging funded it back in the day. I saw him with Clara last month, late at the tavern. They were arguing about cleaning up loose ends. I didn't think much of it until now." Before Elena could press further, a low creak came from the mill house door. She ducked behind a rusted barrel, pulling Ellis with her.
Victor Kane stepped out, his polished shoes absurd against the muddy ground. Clara followed, her auburn hair catching the moonlight as she scanned the darkness. "We're running out of time," she hissed to Kane. "If she keeps digging, it'll lead back to us." Kane's voice was smooth, unhurried. "Relax, Clara. The note should slow her down. If not, we'll handle it, like we handled the others." Elena's blood ran cold. The others. Confirmation of the note's warning. Sarah and Caleb weren't the first. She glanced at Ellis, whose face had gone ashen. He mouthed, "We need to go," but she shook her head. She needed more, something concrete to nail them. Kane and Clara moved toward the sleek black truck parked nearby, the same make the hiker had mentioned. As they drove off, their taillights swallowed by the fog, Elena stood, her mind churning. Clara, the station's trusted dispatcher, was in deep. Kane, with his charm and connections, was likely pulling strings. But how did Voss fit in, and where was she now? "We need that journal," Elena said to Ellis. "If Nate documented Voss's operation, it's our best shot at evidence." Ellis nodded, but his eyes were distant. "It's at the cabin up near Black Ridge Trail. But Reyes, if they find out I'm helping you, I'm dead. My brother got too close and look what happened." "Then we move fast. Get me to the cabin. Now." The drive to Black Ridge Trail was a blur, the fog so thick Elena could barely see 10 feet ahead. Ellis directed her to a narrow turnoff where a dilapidated hunting cabin crouched among the pines. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of mildew and old wood. Ellis led her to a loose floorboard under a cot, pulling out a weathered leather journal. Elena flipped it open, scanning Nate's cramped handwriting by flashlight. Pages detailed the Ashwood shelter, missing kids, late-night deliveries to a warehouse owned by Kane Logging, and cryptic references to the Circle, a group Voss allegedly ran marked by spiral symbols. One entry chilled her. Found a locket in the warehouse. Girl's photo. Inscribed, "Forever, S." Voss's daughter? Or a victim? Someone's covering for her. Elena's heart skipped. The locket wasn't Sarah's. It was a clue to Voss's inner circle. She turned to Ellis. Did Nate ever mention Clara or Kane by name? Before he could answer, headlights swept across the cabin's grimy windows. Ellis froze. "That's not one of ours." Elena doused the flashlight, drawing her gun. "Stay low," she whispered. Creeping to the window, a black truck idled outside, its driver obscured. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped out. Tall, female, with short auburn hair. Clara. But she wasn't alone. A second figure emerged, smaller, cloaked in a hooded jacket. The hood fell back, revealing a woman with sharp features and graying hair, her eyes glinting with cold purpose. Elena's breath caught. Margaret Voss, alive and in Whispering Pines. The plot twisted. Voss wasn't just a ghost from the past. She was here, now, working with Clara. And Kane? He was the puppet master, or maybe just another pawn. As Clara and Voss approached the cabin, Elena realized the truth was darker than she had imagined. The circle was still active, and she just walked into its heart.
Chapter 8. The Circle's Grip. Elena crouched low in the hunting cabin, her gun steady in her hands as the silhouettes of Clara and Margaret Voss loomed closer through the fogged window. The journal, clutched tightly in her other hand, felt like a ticking bomb, Nate's words exposing a web of secrets that had already cost lives. Deputy Ellis knelt beside her, his breathing shallow, his eyes darting between the door and the journal. The black truck idled outside, its engine a low growl in the oppressive silence of Black Ridge Trail. "Don't move," Elena whispered, her voice barely a breath. "If they're here, they know we are." Ellis nodded, his face pale, but his hand hovered near his own holster. "Clara's been at the station for years. How'd I miss this?" he muttered. Same way we all did, Elena replied, her mind racing. Clara's nervous tics, her evasiveness about active cases. It wasn't just small-town standoffishness. She was a gatekeeper, shielding the circle's secrets. And Voss, the ghost from Ashwood's past, was no longer hiding. The question was why now, and how deep did Victor Kane's involvement run? The cabin door creaked, and Elena's grip tightened on her gun. Clara's voice cut through the stillness, sharp and urgent. "Check the back. If they're here, we can't let them leave." Voss's reply was colder, laced with authority. "They won't. Not with that journal." Elena's heart thudded. They knew about Nate's notes? Had they been watching Ellis all along? She gestured for him to follow her to the rear window, a rickety frame half blocked by a warped board. She pried it loose, wincing at the faint scrape of wood, and peered into the fog. No one yet. They had seconds, maybe less. "Go," she hissed, boosting Ellis through the window. He landed softly in the pine needles, and she followed, clutching the journal to her chest. They sprinted into the trees, the fog swallowing their footsteps as Clara's flashlight beam swept the cabin's interior behind them. They reached a gully, ducking behind a fallen log as the beam flickered closer. Elena flipped open the journal, scanning by the dim glow of her phone. One of Nate's final entries caught her eye. The circle meets at the old quarry, midnight. Kane's there, Voss's orders. They're moving something tonight. Kids? Drugs? Worse? The date was 6 years ago, the night Nate vanished. "Quarry's a mile west," Ellis whispered, reading over her shoulder. "Abandoned since the 90s. If they're still using it, then that's where we find answers," Elena said, pocketing the journal. "But we need backup. Clara and Voss aren't working alone." Ellis hesitated, his eyes haunted. "You don't get it, Reyes. The circle is not just them. It's bigger. Cops, loggers, even folks in town. Nate said half of Whispering Pines was bought or scared into silence." Elena's stomach churned. A conspiracy that deep explained the town's eerie calm, the lack of active cases, Brooks's deflections. But it also meant trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, not even with Ellis, whose sudden cooperation felt too convenient. Was he leading her to answers or into a trap? "We move now," Elena said, standing. "Quarry, midnight. You're either with me or you're not." Ellis nodded, but his hand twitched, betraying nerves. "I'm with you, for Nate." They trekked through the fog, the pines closing in like silent conspirators. The quarry was a jagged scar in the earth, its rusted machinery looming like skeletal giants in the mist. Elena checked her watch. 11:45 p.m. She scanned the perimeter, spotting fresh tire tracks, multiple vehicles, recent. Her radio crackled softly, but she kept it muted. Calling Brooks now risked tipping off the wrong people. A low hum broke the silence. Engines approaching. Headlights pierced the fog, and 3 vehicles pulled into the quarry. Kane's black truck, a battered van, and a sleek SUV. Figures emerged, their faces obscured, but Elena recognized Kane's tailored silhouette and Clara's wiry frame. Voss was there too, directing 2 others, burly men in work jackets, likely loggers. They unloaded crates from the van, their movements hurried but precise. Elena crept closer, Ellis at her heels, using a rusted conveyor belt for cover. She strained to hear Voss's clipped orders. "Get it to the warehouse by dawn. No mistakes this time." One of the loggers grunted. "What about the detective? She's asking too many questions." Kane's voice was smooth, almost amused. "She'll stop, one way or another." Elena's blood ran cold. She glanced at Ellis, whose face was a mask of rage and fear. The crates, wooden, unmarked, could hold anything, drugs, weapons, or worse given Nate's journal. She needed evidence, something to tie this to Sarah and Caleb's murders.
She pulled out her phone, switching to video mode, and recorded the scene, capturing Voss handing Kane a small spiral-marked pendant, the same symbol as Caleb's tattoo, the wooden bead, proof of the circle's reach. But then a crunch of gravel behind her. She spun, gun raised, to find Sheriff Brooks, his face grim in the moonlight. "Drop it, Elena." Her heart sunk. "Harlan, what the hell are you doing here?" "I told you to be careful," he said, his voice heavy. "You should have listened." Ellis stepped forward, his fist clenched. "You're one of them? After everything Nate did for you?" Brooks's eyes flickered with guilt, but his gun stayed steady. "I didn't want this, but the circle, they don't let you walk away. Not Nate, not me, not you." The twist hit Elena like a gut punch. Brooks, the jovial sheriff who'd welcomed her, was part of the circle, not just complicit, but trapped. She kept her gun trained on him, mind racing for an out. The quarry's activity had paused, Kane and Voss turning toward the commotion. "Harlan, you can still do the right thing," Elena said, her voice low but firm. "Help me stop them, for Sarah, for Caleb, for Nate." Brooks's hand trembled, his resolve wavering, but before he could answer, a shout from the quarry, Clara, spotting them. "They're here!" Chaos erupted. The loggers drew weapons, and Kane barked orders. Elena grabbed Ellis, diving behind a boulder as gunfire cracked through the fog. Brooks hesitated, then lowered his gun, his face crumpling. "Run, Elena, now!" She didn't wait to see if he'd follow. Dragging Ellis, she bolted into the trees, the journal and her phone her only leverage against a town that had just revealed its true, rotten heart.
Chapter 9. The Quarry's Reckoning. Elena's boots pounded the forest floor, the fog a suffocating veil as she and Ellis sprinted through the pines, gunfire echoing behind them. The journal was tucked inside her jacket, her phone still clutched in one hand, its video evidence a fragile lifeline. Branches clawed at her face, and Ellis's ragged breathing beside her betrayed his panic. The quarry's chaos faded into the distance, but the shouts of Kane's men and the roar of engines told her the circle wasn't giving up. "Keep moving," she hissed, dodging a low branch. "We need to get to my SUV." Ellis stumbled, catching himself against a tree. "They'll cut us off at the trailhead. We need another way." Elena's mind raced. The Black Ridge Trail looped back toward town, but it was too exposed. Her cabin was closer, hidden up a side path, but it was a gamble. Kane and Voss likely knew where she lived. Still, it had a landline, and she needed to call in outside help. Whispering Pines Sheriff's Office was compromised. Brooks' betrayal stung like a fresh wound. "This way," she said, veering toward the cabin's path. The fog thickened, muffling their steps, but every rustle in the underbrush set her nerves on edge. Her phone vibrated, a low battery warning. She cursed under her breath. The video of Kane, Clara, and Voss was her only leverage, and it wouldn't last long without power. They reached the cabin, its dark silhouette barely visible through the mist. Elena motioned for Ellis to stay low as she scanned the clearing. No vehicles, no lights, but that didn't mean it was safe. She unlocked the door, gun drawn, and swept the small space. Empty, for now. "Grab the landline," she told Ellis, pointing to the kitchen. "Call Ashwood PD. Tell them we need state troopers. Mention Margaret Voss and Kane logging. Say it's tied to multiple homicides." Ellis nodded, his hand shaking as he dialed. Elena plugged her phone into a charger, praying it would hold long enough to send the video to her old city partner, Ruiz. She trusted Ruiz to get it to the feds if Whispering Pines corruption ran too deep. As the file uploaded, she flipped through Nate's journal, her eyes catching a chilling entry. Voss's daughter Sophie runs the circle now. Kane's just her front. She's here, in town, hiding in plain sight. Sophie, the S from the locket. Not a victim, but a mastermind. Elena's stomach twisted as she replayed every interaction, searching for a clue. Clara's auburn hair, her nervous glances. Could she be Sophie, masking her identity as Voss's daughter? Or was it someone else, embedded deeper in the town's fabric? Ellis hung up the phone, his face grim. Ashwood's sending troopers, but it'll take an hour. They're stretched thin with a pileup on the highway. We don't have an hour, Elena said, checking her phone, 10% battery, upload at 80%. Headlights flashed through the cabin window and her heart sunk. The black truck from the quarry screeched to a stop outside, followed by the SUV. Kane, Clara, and Voss stepped out, flanked by the two loggers, all armed. Reyes, Kane's voice cut through the fog, smooth but laced with menace. Come out, and we can talk. You don't want this to get messy. Elena grabbed Ellis, pulling him behind the couch. Stay down. They don't know we've called for help. Ellis's eyes were wide, his voice a whisper. Sophie's with them. I saw her in the SUV, blind, young, maybe 30. She's been posing as a bartender at the Timberline Tavern. I didn't connect it until now. The twist hit Elena like a freight train. The bartender, Leela, the quiet woman who'd served her beers and listened to locals gossip, was Sophie Voss, orchestrating the circle from the shadows. It explained the cigarette butt with red lipstick. Leela always wore a bold shade at the tavern. She'd been watching Elena from day one, feeding information to Kane and Clara. The cabin door rattled as someone tested the lock. Elena checked her gun, 6 rounds left. The upload hit 90%. The video was out, safe with Ruiz. Her heart steadied. She had a fighting chance now. But then a new voice called from outside. Brooks, Elena, stand down. I'm coming in. He stepped into the doorway, hands raised, his face etched with guilt. I didn't want this, he said, voice breaking. They had my daughter. Sophie's people threatened her if I didn't play along. Elena's grip faltered. Another twist. Brooks wasn't a willing player, but a pawn, blackmailed into compliance. Elena lowered her gun slightly, eyes locked on Sophie. Call off your dog, Sophie. The feds have the video. It's over. Sophie's smile didn't waver. You think one video ends this? The circle is bigger than you can imagine. But Clara faltered, her gun dipping. Sophie, if the feds are coming, shut up, Sophie snapped, her composure cracking. She lunged for Elena, but Brooks moved faster, tackling Sophie to the ground. Clara hesitated, then bolted for the door, only to be met by the wail of sirens, state troopers closing in. Elena cupped Sophie, her heart pounding as the logger surrendered outside. Kane was gone, his truck peeling out into the fog. Brooks sat against the wall, head in his hands, muttering apologies. Ellis, bloody from his fight, stared at Sophie with a mix of rage and relief. The troopers stormed in, securing the scene. Elena handed over the journal and her phone, explaining the circle's reach. As Sophie was led away, she fixed Elena with a chilling stare. You'll never find them all. Elena didn't flinch. The fight wasn't over. Kane was still out there, and the circle's roots ran deep. But Sarah and Caleb had names now, and Nate's truth was out. Justice wasn't complete, but it had begun. As dawn broke, the fog lifted, revealing the pines in sharp relief. Elena stepped outside, the journal's weight gone, replaced by a fragile hope. Whispering pines would never be the same. But neither was she.